Ron Paul now, Republican congressman from Texas, and of course a former presidential candidate himself. He's calling in today on the telephone from Texas. Congressman Paul, always good to talk to you. If a Paul supporter is watching the debate tonight and needs to be convinced by Mitt Romney, what does Romney have to do you think?
Make sure he sounds a little bit different than the other and be convincing that his policies are a lot different. So many people that have joined the freedom movement were frustrated, with the whole process because they can't see enough difference. So he has to be different. But unfortunately, when it comes to whether it's the foreign policy, they're very similar, or whether it has to do with the Federal Reserve, it's similar. So I think our supporters see too much similarity. And I think he has to show that he is quite different, just not on management style, but really philosophically. That's what so many people are looking for.
How do you think those supporters who had a lot of enthusiasm for you in the primaries when you run for president, how do you think they'll break down in terms of their support in this election? I mean, is it 80-20 Romney? Is it closer to 50-50? I mean, who do you think they'll move towards?
I think the best word is break down. They'll probably go different places. Some will be angry at the Republicans for the way they were treated at the convention, and they might not show up. Some may vote Libertarian. Some, may go with Romney. There's actually some of the young people, because of foreign policy issue, might even go with Obama. So it's hard to say. I know one thing for certain. That they're not all going to the one place because they're very individualistic and they don't see the consequences exactly the same. So I think it would be very difficult to predict.
Could be a big deal, by the way, in especially some of these swing states if they don't show up. Who are you going to vote for?
Haven't decided yet. At least I haven't decided. I've decided not to announce it. So no, I'm going to sort of sit tight for a little bit longer.
No, that's fine if you don't want to announce it, obviously. And some people have made a big deal about how how you haven't endorsed Romney. But have you really not decided, or you're just not going to tell us?
In a way, about voting for somebody, I obviously didn't. I haven't announced in support for Romney, so that means that's very unlikely. And I don't think anybody thinks I'm going to vote for Obama. So. It's back to that frustration level of not seeing a dramatic choice in the way the system works and the inability. Like tonight, there's a debate going on, and if you come to this conclusion that the candidates aren't all that different, why do we have to just listen to two of them? I mean, there are other people who, technically are capable of winning because they're on a lot of ballots.
Like Gary Johnson, you're talking about.
Yeah, and in this country. You have probably less democracy than in even some of these other countries that we're trying to badger into being good, following good democracy.
So you'll vote for him then, probably?
Pardon me?
Gary Johnson. You'd probably support him.
I haven't decided that, no.
It's interesting. Is there anything, but let me ask you one more question before I let you go, because we have all this talk about the undecided voters out there. I think Reuters said it's about 6% of the electorate, and the different polls say different things. Is there something, as you said, you're not going to vote for the president, is there something that Mitt Romney could still do at this late hour to convince you, Ron Paul, to support him?
Bring the troops home, and quit this preaching of a foreign policy where he wants to expand our presence overseas, and that's a big thing with especially the young people that have been in the freedom movement. So the foreign policy would have to change, and he'd have to give more than token support for a token audit of the Federal Reserve. He'd have to say, well, there's something wrong with central banking and economic planning, because that is the reason we have such difficulty in the economy because of Federal Reserve policy. So likelihood of hearing.
From her campaign kickoff onward, Hillary Clinton's inevitability has been wearing thin. There is Bernie Sanders on her left, Joe Biden on the cusp of getting in, and three others hoping she falters. A Fox News national poll out today has Clinton at 45%, Sanders at 25%, Biden, who's not a candidate, at 19%, Martin O'Malley at 1%, and Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee barely registering. We asked the state Democratic chairman and two other politicos if tonight's debate is important.
I think it's more important to the other candidates, particularly Governor O'Malley. I think this is a chance for the country to get to know him, as well as Senator Sanders. Obviously, I'm confident that Secretary Clinton is extremely prepared. And, I believe she will be on the offensive. I personally don't think they're going to attack her.
The first debate is always important. It allows people to lay down their markers and define who they are before somebody else does it. But, it's going to be forgotten 3 weeks after it's over.
I think it's very important for Hillary Clinton to be able to distinguish herself as being presidential, to get away from a lot of the negative email gate, Benghazi that's been talked about a lot. It's also important for the 4 other candidates to try to distinguish themselves, which they've not been able to do to this point.
As state chairman, John Curry is neutral, but as Passaic County chairman, he's all for Clinton.
She's a much warmer person than people give her credit for. I think she still needs to work on the trust issue with the public. I trust her. I think she'll make an excellent president.
She's a seasoned veteran of this stuff. She's going to be careful. She's not going to make any mistakes.
Journalist Nick Acocella doubts the others will attack Clinton. The Democrats are not going to attack Hillary?
They will not attack her.
Why not?
Because it doesn't do them any good. I mean, you're going to look like you're picking on the front runner. You're going to look as if you were picking on a woman.
Operative Adam Silverstein expects attacks.
I think that Senator Webb and Governor O'Malley have been frustrated by the fact that they've been unable to get traction. They're going to use this as an opportunity to introduce themselves to the electorate. I think they're going to be a little nastier than people are expecting.
And he says if Clinton stumbles,
I do believe Joe Biden will use this as an opportunity to say, I need to get into the race. If she's very strong and she gets a bounce out of tonight, he may continue to question his decision. But if she's weak and there's further eroding of her poll numbers, Joe Biden may get into the race because of what happens tonight.
debates are about theatrics and substance, and they do matter. Whether tonight makes any lasting difference for any of the Democrats, we'll find out soon. In Hackensack, I'm Michael Aaron, NJTV News.
I'm Jesse Ventura. When I first started running for governor of Minnesota in 1998, I was polling at only 8%. However, after I appeared in televised debates, that percentage skyrocketed because voters saw that I was able to challenge Republicans and Democrats when they were both wrong. Now Gary Johnson, the former governor of New Mexico, is running for president with the Libertarian Party, and he will be on the ballot in almost all 50 states. Isn't it time we allowed a credible third-party candidate into our presidential debates to tell Obama and Romney when they're both wrong? Call the Commission on Presidential Debates today and tell them you want to see Gary Johnson in the televised debates. Because if this is still a country based on freedom, we shouldn't limit our freedom of choice. Live free.
Paid for by Libertarian Action Super PAC. Libertarian Action Super PAC is responsible for the content of this message.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. John LaPook, medical correspondent for the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric, and welcome to CBSDoc.com. Today we're talking about a subject that's been all over the news lately, medical marijuana. Namely, should it be allowed? We brought in 2 experts on both sides of the issue to break down the debate, but first we hit the streets to see what you had to say.
Are you Dr. LaPook?
I'm Dr. LaPook.
Is it harmful to you?
If it were legal, how would it be distributed? What is it actually used for?
Are there alternatives?
Are you going to give us free weed?
You both from Norway?
Yes.
What would you bet me that I would know or would not know the Norwegian national anthem?
I'll bet my entire fortune on it.
Ja, vi älskar
I did not expect that.
What questions do you have about medical marijuana?
I guess what are the parameters? Like, what do you have to do to qualify for it?
What quantity is appropriate?
I'd be curious to know about addiction issues.
As young people growing up, we sort of knew the evils of marijuana.
What were the evils of marijuana?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
What are some of the uses of medical marijuana?
Medical marijuana is great for muscle spasm, arthritis, pain, weight loss, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, and a host of disorders.
What is your stance? Where do you stand?
I'd like to see everyone who is ill have the opportunity to use this medicine.
So you think that medical marijuana should be legalized?
Absolutely.
Is that how you see it?
No. I'm a scientist and a healer. I treat patients, but I also do research. and I have to be guided by the data.
This is a medicine with a 5,000-year history that goes back to ancient China that's been used for these same uses for so long with literally no negative consequences. How could we possibly hold this back given all the data we have?
Is that true, Doctor? I'm going to interrupt. Is that true? There are literally no negative consequences?
Absolutely not. That's an absurd statement without meaning to be disrespectful. But there's increasing evidence that marijuana, for example, brings on psychosis earlier. The more you use marijuana as an adolescent, the more likely you are to have a psychotic episode. There are other problems in terms of memory, in terms of cognition, in terms of learning.
I want to do a little bit of a point-counterpoint, or a joint-counterjoint between the two of you. What about problems from chronic marijuana smoking and lung disease?
There's no link with lung cancer or emphysema. The coughing and wheezing and tightness in the chest, respiratory complications seem to be sidestepped with the cannabis vaporizer.
I haven't heard that all these marijuana smokers are suddenly rushing out to use a vaporizer.
Marijuana use decreases serum testosterone levels, sperm count, and sperm motility, can lead to all sorts of problems with libido. And in women, it can cause shorter menstrual cycles and also changes with their hormones. What do you say to that?
The hormonal impact is relatively minor compared to a lot of drugs that are already used. And it's reversible so that even a small period of abstinence can tend to return things back to normal.
It doesn't last, but to say that doesn't take away from the fact that something is going on by the drug causing that. And if an individual uses it over years, that is going to have an effect on many things. Remember, marijuana is fat soluble, and so it's stored in the testicles and other organs in the body, so it's around for a long time.
One of the things I hear is that whatever you feel about marijuana use, one of the problems is it's a gateway. It leads to further addiction and use of more powerful drugs.
Many of us who've seen the data feel it's very, very clear, both in human studies and in animal studies, that it is a gateway drug to more potent drugs such as opioids and stimulants.
I feel like the gateway is overstated, and if you just look at our own data, 100 million people have tried marijuana. Where are all the heroin addicts?
How do you regulate it?
I love the idea of using it just like any other pharmaceutical.
Which means what?
Go to the drugstore, pick it up, have your prescription there, and away you go.
What would you pick up in that pharmacy?
So you
3%, 6%, 12%, 20%?
I think the opportunity to have stronger potencies so that you have to smoke less and use it in the vaporizer so there are fewer respiratory symptoms is a great one.
The higher the potency, the quicker the intoxication, and I think the more likely you are to become dependent on it. We haven't even talked about marijuana addiction. It used to be felt that you didn't get addicted to marijuana. I get calls every week about people who can't stop using marijuana. There is a marijuana withdrawal syndrome.
It took a long time to identify this withdrawal syndrome, and it's, in all honesty, comparable to some of the ones we see with coffee. So I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but yes, there definitely is a diagnosis of dependence.
How about the pill form that's legalized already?
The pill form is legal for 2 or 3 things. Nausea and vomiting of chemotherapy, AIDS wasting, and also for certain kinds of neuropathic pain.
I'm happy that dronabinol, the marijuana pill, is available, but it's only one substance, THC. Marijuana contains over 60 different cannabinoids, and we're finding that in combination, these are a lot more effective than just the one by itself. Also, dronabinol is a pill. You have to swallow it, you have to digest it. People with nausea and vomiting aren't good at swallowing pills.
And the debate goes on. Thanks so much to Dr. Earlywine and Dr. Kleber for joining us. Of course, we've only just scratched the surface on this subject, so please go to cbsdoc.com for a lot more resources and information on the medical marijuana debate. And we want to know what you think. Leave a comment or email us at doc@cbs.com. Next week, we're talking about male sexual dysfunction. You can email your questions now or go to cbsdoc.com to send in video questions. We definitely want to hear from you. I'm Dr. John LaPook. Thanks for joining us.